about diversity. Do you guys know what diversity is already?
I think the majority of us have a general concept of what diversity is, but we truly don't understand what it means.
Okay. All right. Anybody want to give a shot at what you think it is? I'm sure it's not going to be wrong.
It's like inclusion. You do like it could be whether it's like social settings, whether it's more private, like in our chapter operations, as well as getting various groups integrated. I guess it's the best way to.
You've gone straight. Yeah, he just went straight up there. So we're going to start off with diversity, which means differences. It's some things I think, especially all of us now, we try to make so much big deal out of a lot of things. It's just the differences of folk. We all are diverse in some way. Different backgrounds, religions. Some of us wear glasses, some do not. I mean, yeah, whatever is the difference, your background, your opinion, politics, sexual orientation, whatever that is different, is not just a black and white thing. A lot of times people say, oh, if you're neither this or that, there are so many shades of differences. So it just means being different. So a diversity is a fact. Everybody, even twins, there's something different about each one. That's just what it is. We're all born differently in some type of way. So that's what that is. And I think you got down packed already. He already hit it out of the park about diversity.
And
now,
does anyone know what inclusivity is? You kind of hit it on the head as well, but as far as inclusivity, any guesses?
Maybe being involved despite how diverse one is, no matter where they come from or what they believe or anything like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so it's just essentially making sure that people from different cultures, different, backgrounds, ethnicities, sexual orientations, religions, anything, make sure that they feel like they belong in a setting, make sure that they feel included. Recognized, this can, be anywhere from let's say you're at like a club or if you're all dancing or something like that, you always have that one person in the corner who maybe doesn't quite feel like they belong.
right.
It could be as simple as going over to them and being like, hey, introducing yourself, trying to get small talk, getting to know them, showing that you want to get to know them, that sort of thing.
It's intentional.
It's intentional.
Yeah, you have to make an effort.
Yeah.
To do it.
And that leads into, where diversity is the fact, inclusion is the act, if you will.
Right.
It's the actual process of making sure that, we celebrate our diversity, we celebrate our differences, and getting to understanding those differences, is the act and the actual effort put in by the individual to another individual to celebrate and bring everyone together.
Let them know that we really welcome you here. If you invite someone to the table, but you don't give them any food, what do you really say? We're glad you're here, but I'm not going to feed you. I'm not going to, communicate well with you. So it's the real being involved, making that true effort.
So.
And this is similar to what Jacob just talked about. Diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. And you guys seem to have it going on, but I was one of those wallflower people that might have been at the party, but didn't really engage. So I always felt kind of lonely in a big crowd, just like, this is not for me. But I was in a diverse crowd, people were there, but if I didn't feel welcome to dance or the music wasn't quite my thing, it just made me feel a little lonely. But when someone engaged and said, hey, do you want to dance? That's a whole different thing. be at a party and to be partying. Those are two different things, right? So those are the two differences when you really are engaged.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead. This is a big one. So, what is equity? Does anyone know?
Mhm.
When equality is, everyone gets the same thing, but equity is what is fair. Everyone gets what's fair.
You're
That
right
is
on it.
absolutely wonderful.
You're right on
And
it.
TBH, that's, the one thing that most people typically don't get, and the one definition that a lot of people don't understand. Equity is the act of giving everyone equal resources so that everyone can perform equally. We all come from different backgrounds. A lot of us are less privileged than others. Some of us are more so. And by providing those resources to an individual who may be less privileged, helps them perform at a similar level to the ones who may have had these resources readily available to them. So excellent.
That's excellent.
Excellent touch on that. A good example of this and seeing these differences is in this image right here. Of course, in the first one, everyone's got the same size box, but everyone's different sizes. Everyone's a different height, and so not everyone's going to be able to look over that fence and see the green field, green pasture, the ball game on the other side and enjoy it. Equity is where we give everyone the exact same or different resources according to their needs, so that they can enjoy the ball game, they can enjoy the pasture, they can enjoy the side, the whatever's happening on the other side of that fence. Just make sure that everyone's on the same playing field. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
for that
we
one.
said that
That's
same
yeah.
stuff over again, yeah. And it makes a difference when you're dealing with the equity and equality. When you're talking about equality, lots of times it's a nice, catchy term, and it feels like, hey, I gave you what I gave this other person, so what's the big deal? But you really have to dig into a person's background to see where they're coming from. We talked about that just before. If you both have a house, but someone inherited the house and someone had to build the house. So they have a different appreciation for that house. They both were being covered from the elements. But this one had to actually hit the nail to build it, and this one you walk through the door. So it's a little different when you're talking about certain areas and how they may react to certain things. When you realize that, or maybe be conscious of it, that it might exist. It might not be everybody's story, but there are differences in all of our stories.
So, and again, just noticing those differences, diversity, again, is just the act. It's just simply the representation of where the person comes from, their background, everything. And inclusion is the actual act of getting those people together and actually start celebrating those differences. And a good example of this is in baking. I don't know how many of y'all bake. As guys, I don't feel like typically bake too often, but I've made one or two cakes in my life. So, with this being said, diversity is all the individual ingredients. We got the eggs, but you're not going to eat those raw eggs by itself. If you're hardcore trying to go for protein, awesome. I'm not about that. So, it's each individual ingredient. Inclusion is the act of baking. So putting all of those ingredients together so that we actually celebrate and get something nice and colorful and wonderful at the end.
And it's really simple. We try to simplify it, but I think it's the best representation of all these individual types of things. And when they work together, you got something that's really tasteful, something that you like to look at. I think even in organizations or just, I did some research, they're more profitable when you have different points of views. If everybody's a yes man or yes woman or yes person, no one's gonna be like I used to say, the Jamal in the room. To say, well, maybe we shouldn't put those white hoods on. It might represent represent something different than somebody else. I'm just saying, you know, there has to be another point of view, and someone else was thinking about Casper, someone else was thinking about KKK. So we just have to really, really be conscious of someone else's viewpoint.
Make sure that that's understood. Like Ms. Van said a second ago, companies that have diversity and have inclusion involved in their workplace are typically more profitable and more effective when getting work done, up to about 40 to 80%. Between there, depending on how effective their inclusivity is. Because again, someone from India who has a large background in computer programming or even event planning is going to a lot more, not a lot more, but they're going to have experience with different problems than someone from rural Atlanta. You know, they're going to be able to bring different viewpoints and different ideas to the table that may actually be the solution to a problem. And this is why that's important in the workplace. So. That kind of leads into this question.
Yeah. So why does diversity matter in college? So what's the big deal?
Well, college is basically what melting pot when you think about it, because there are some people that like go from like different countries just to come to the school. That's why we have the international house. I myself am an RA, so and I have some people from Cuba. I have one in Dixon from Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah. So it's great to be mindful for like other cultures and stuff like that, because things that we do here that may not be a big deal could be offensive to them. That's one thing. And another thing is like when you communicate with other people, not only can you learn about other people's culture and like their their ethnicity and stuff like that, you can also take what they do and what they know from their culture and use it in our own perspectives.
Did you read the book or something?
I look at a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
I think it matters because, like, coming from like a demographically like majority white area, when we have people that come here, you know, college is trying to boost everyone up in their life. But if you can show that people from different backgrounds can come here and succeed, I think that's a good thing to have at a college. Just because, you know, you would want to be able to like help everyone become successful no matter background, so that like, everyone has the resources to be great.
It's that introduction to worldliness in those other cultures that, you know, inevitably will help you in the workplace or wherever you wind up in the future. And both those points perfectly, and it seems like you read the book.
Anybody else have
Yeah.
opinions on that?
Any other?
I mean, I feel like college is just like, it's like the stage, like setting up the stage for the workforce. And in the workforce, regardless of where you go, you're bound to find something diverse within that workforce. So it's important because, you know, just how college is preparing you for your career, you know, it's also preparing you for those other things that come with the career.
100%.
I think on a more personal level, college is kind of that area where you start to develop like who you're going to be for the rest of your life. For the most part, people can change obviously over time and stuff. But like if you shy away from diversifying basically your surroundings, then maybe when you go into the workforce, like he was saying, you may shy away and make other people miss opportunities. You may not include it in your future life. So it kind of you kind of hinder yourself.
Yes, and your voice matters. What you think matters in a situation.
Hinders yourself and others if you don't have that open mindset, you know, because it can affect, again, if you're the boss, it could possibly affect who you're hiring as well, based upon biases and so forth. So yeah, does anyone have anything else? Any other ideas? All right. So, again, expand worldliness, we touched on that. That gets you ready for the workforce. Increases our knowledge and social development. Y'all pretty much all top.
Yep.
Touched on every single one of those PowerPoint slides, so we'll move on. So, that being said and everything, we want to ask, how can you embrace diversity and inclusion? Either here or in your own personal lives at home. This is just kind of a moment for y'all to discuss, either amongst yourselves with us. If you have questions, you know, ask us, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Maybe talk to someone you don't get to talk too much, or you don't know much about them. You know, you guys
about it. So just let them be a part of the party. We're students. Don't be wrong. I diversify everybody. This is being recorded. You're talking to everything.
Yeah.
How to not be, how to diversify and include people and everything. Okay, Mr. Chaplin. That's kind of your, I feel like that's a lot of your job. I feel like you gotta make everybody
I gotta recruit them.
Yeah.
We already minded. Everyone wait to listen.
Also,
People don't understand what's going on.
that's be nice.
Yeah. Let them, because they're human too.
Let them
Which human?
diversity.
Did you what I said?
What?
They're human too.
They're human too.
Yes. They have eyes, ears, mouth, nose, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 feet.
Why do you say that?
What?
Oh no.
So does anyone want to
You're not allowed
share?
to have ice drink.
Yeah, okay, look at that.
The main thing is just being open-minded.
They're gonna take you away.
It's really hard to understand.
I don't get it.
Things.
Ice?
Because like for me growing up,
Immigration
I grew up in like a majority
services or
like
whatever.
90% black school growing up. So I was high
It's
school.
gonna take you away.
I don't get it.
50-50
Oh my
black,
God.
white, and like little Hispanics here and there, sprinkled in every other way. It was a very different culture when I first got there. I wasn't accustomed to being around that many like white people.
So how did you handle it? How did you interact?
I don't know, that's what I was in the country together too. All right. You know, little boots here and there. Little twang.
Oh, so it was Southern white people.
Yeah, I'm from Birmingham.
Oh, okay. I'm from New Jersey, so I can understand what you were doing.
Yeah.
What you doing? What is that? But yeah, it all depends. See, we're diverse in so many ways. I'm a transplant from New Jersey here, so I had to learn a whole lot of different things. This made me think about students. When I first got the position, there were some athletes that got in a little trouble, and I was the wonderful one chosen to go speak to these athletes, and they were white, they didn't look like me, so I was sitting up there, okay, I had to get myself ready to speak to these young men, and I asked them what their backgrounds were, what their ethnicities were. So they both looked at each other and said, "We're white." And I said, "Excuse me, sweetheart? We're white." I said, "Are you saying you're white?" He said, "Yes." I said, "That's not your ethnicity. What's your family background? What's your culture? What's your heritage?" They didn't know. They didn't have a clue. So I told them, "Hey, that's your assignment. Next week when you come in here, tell me a little bit about yourselves, because they had made little remarks, and we wanted to make sure we cleared that up. We didn't want any issues going out there." So when they got back, one of them found out that his grandma was from Japan, and his granddad was a soldier, and he met her when he was stationed out. And I said, "Excuse me, I don't think you could just say you're white." It's bigger than that. So once you know where you come from, I think they change their language in that persona of, "Hey, I'm just messing around. It ain't gonna hurt nobody." But like, how would you feel if someone's called your grandma a different name that you just like? That's the person you love, right? So it kind of hit home when you know we are all coming from somewhere. It's not just a shade of color. I think I left my little thing. I had crayons that I was going to show them. But anyway, that wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else want to share?
Oh, we kind of talked about it back here, and I think like as a general fraternity, we do a great job of embracing diversity and inclusion. But then as far as certain individuals, and it kind of even ties into the stigma of like men being able to talk to each other about like their feelings and emotions, like, you know, being able to truly talk to somebody and understand where they're from, like y'all said, gives them a different perspective. Like I remember in high school having one of my best friend, he came from a completely different demographic than I did. You know, picture perfect family, you know, everything was given to him, things like that. But you know, people don't ever understand why friendships like that happen, and it's not until you realize that, you know, we actually took the time to get to know each other, and we found similarities in ways that and like ways that we could help each other.
Well, that's great. By just surface, you might not have known that by just looking at that person, but when you get to talk to them.
You can develop relationships that will last and that will educate you, you know. And it's also that, like you touched on, as guys, we don't typically talk about our feelings a whole lot, you know. Being able to be open about them and to other people and be able to talk about your feelings and so forth can open up those avenues to really have these beautiful relationships, and get to know these different people that really benefit you in the future if someone else begins to struggle with that same problem that you may have had in high school, you may have had in college, you may have had as a kid, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, having some grace and compassion for folks. I know a lot of the students have had that with me when I first started on this journey. I was getting my pronouns all mixed up. I was just horrible at it. And I have teenage daughters, and they were trying to show and tell me what's the difference, and I didn't get the they as a singular person. It just didn't work for my brain, because I was still fixed in the old way of thinking. But as I got to know individuals, I respected that individual for whatever they said that their pronouns were. So it wasn't about me calling them what I see, it's me calling them what they wanted to be called. And once I got that and kept on saying, okay, this individual wants me to call them they, so that's what I'm going to try to do. So, yeah, I've come a long way with that, but we have to give each other some grace. Especially, I don't know about you guys, but you probably, I'm old enough to be your moms. So sometimes we just learn things in a different way. But to be more inclusive, to make sure that we're in our children's lives and we can understand and communicate better, we all can learn. And that's in diversity, it's with age as well. I found that out as I gotten older. Sometimes I want to be, you know, in the know and know what's going on, but because you're of a certain age, you wouldn't understand. Try me out. It's an opportunity. So, you know, it's a lot. It's not just in color, and sex, and age. If you have another student there that might be a non-traditional student, maybe you can take an effort to talk to that person. And you would be surprised of the knowledge and the wisdom some of those students can maybe help you out with just by, you know, you just taking a step. And once you know better, we figure everyone start acting better.
And to kind of segue as far as like the pronoun thing goes, that's a prime example of, you know, the platinum rule. I don't know how many of y'all may be familiar with this. It was a business term that was established back in 1997 by Gravitz, I think is the last name. But it's kind of a play off the golden rule, because everyone knows the golden rule is you don't treat others how you want to be treated. The platinum rule is kind of a way of shifting your focus to where it's treating them how they want to be treated. So asking them up front is like, hey, for example, what are your pronouns, or how should I conduct a conversation with you if you're curious about that? You know, it's making sure you're treating them the way that they want to be treated. Because the issue with the golden rule is that if you're suffering from low self-esteem, if you're really not enjoying yourself as a person, if you're mean to yourself, negative with yourself, you're treating yourself, you may not necessarily want to treat yourself that way in that time of life, but there's maybe some subconscious things at play that are causing you to think like that, and maybe you want to be treated like that to some extent, who knows. But that leads into your relationships. So if you're treating others the way you want to be treated, you have that potential of treating them negatively and without the love and compassion that they want. So the Platinum Rule helps you, it kind of transitions that thought to actually catering to the individual you're talking with and trying to come close with your friends with. Again, this was used once a business term, but they've kind of made it into hopefully more of a mainstream thing that needs to take place. But that's something that I keep in mind going forward. When you're maybe curious about how to treat an individual based upon sex, based upon, ethnicity or background. So treat them how they want to be treated.
Any questions for us?
Where did y'all come from? What did y'all have?
Well, I'm a northerner, Jersey girl that would spend my summers in southern Alabama where my grandparents were. So I split my life in both places. Summertime in the deep south, and then school time up north. I grew up around a diverse group of folk. Predominantly went to a white high school. My elementary school was pretty mixed, were mostly African American. And as I was growing up, we had more Hispanic people started coming into the neighborhood. It was such a mixture of bean pies and curry chicken, if you haven't had all those smells, I miss those smells. So I had a lot of mixture of that. So it was a culture shock when I came to Jacksonville, when everything was black and white. Why? So that thing right there, and learning how the dynamics and reading more and learning more to see, okay, it's more to this black and white thing, letting people dig into that. I think I've enjoyed that type of work. So that's me.
I grew up a military brat, so I was born in Germany, but my parents were from Atlanta, Georgia, both of them. They met in high school. They're both white, and my entire background is from Ireland, Germany, Sweden, everywhere. So predominantly white, and a lot of southern viewpoints as far as extended family goes. Growing up, though, we traveled from place to place. I've moved 18 times in my life, and I've met everyone from officers from Turkey, Germany, India, Africa. I have been blessed to have a very, very diverse background and to learn about these different cultures growing up. I was homeschooled my entire life, and so that kind of gave me...
He doesn't look like he was homeschooled, does he? My mind thinks of a homeschooled person as a little bit reserved.
Or shy. I was blessed with very quirky and outgoing parents, so, and a lot of great friends growing up, and a lot of great lieutenant colonels who kind of got me out of my shell. Yeah, they tend to do that, just a little bit. Just a little bit. But yeah, my father was purely Army. I don't know which Army. Yeah, Army. But yeah, I found myself in Huntsville, Alabama, back in 2011 when my father retired, and I'm part of the LGBTQ+ community, and I identify as non-binary, but I go by he/him to keep things simple in the South because. I'll explain it if you ask me about it and so forth. But I keep it simple because, I get plenty of questions enough in my office. So, so that's kind of my background. I was, again, blessed with having a very, very diverse and understanding background as far as cultures go and everything, but moving to Jacksonville, Alabama was definitely a culture shock
It's a
for me
culture
too,
shock.
a little bit.
It is. It's so different. My culture from a little town that's called Wilcox County in South Alabama. And they're Creole, African, and near that Mobile area. If you've been to Mobile, if you've been to New Orleans, there's a different twang, and the people are a little different there, and that's what my background is. So, and if there's an area down there that's called G's Bend and Petway's Bend, and Petway is like a name that people don't know much in this area, but you go down there, it's like Smith, it's like Williams, Jackson, name Petway's. Every other person's name, his last name is Petway. So it's a different type of background, and I would suggest you all just take that time out and learn more about your background, and it'll make you have such an appreciation, or you can understand why you might act the way you are, what you like, certain things. It really helps, I think, understand others better. We have our information and our cards with us.
I already know who you are.
Okay. Well, if you want, I think, we went through all that. Have
Empathy, accept, show compassion.
I think we just let it flow. It just came on out.
Got the slides, but
I'll tell that unless you said hi.
Okay. But this is our stuff. Follow us on Facebook, social media,
Instagram and Facebook is all we got. We're not risking TikTok.
It's funny how you run across you, because the first time I saw you was at Walmart when I first started working there.
Yes.
Yeah, I came from Walmart myself. Yeah.
We talked outside earlier that one day, but like,
that's a
Walmart
time.
was horrible.
Yeah.
So bad.
He was just
Saved
about
by
to,
Miss Pam.
he was just about to take the evening management.
I was about to become overnight manager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard pass.
And I called him up, and after the interview, I knew that I wanted to hire him, because let me tell you about this guy. He came to the office and introduced himself and had his resume. People don't do that anymore. Everything is electronic.
Yeah.
So I was still interviewing him. So he came to my office, introduced himself, dressed to the nines, and gave his resume, shook my hand. I was like, I haven't seen this in, I don't know, forever. So I had already kind of voluntold what I needed to do, what type of person, and I was like, and after you left, I was like, why did he come in here? Because it was going to be easy to just follow directions of what I was told to do. But after meeting him, I knew that this is probably the person who's going to be best for the position. So,
Such a much more meaningful position.
And truly, it's been a blessing as far as emotionally and spiritually in my life. Like being able to help people, especially part of my community and other cultures, it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be in higher education. So even though I could have been doing real well over at Walmart financially, mentally it was not worth it.
You would have to deal with me when I come in like late at night for nachos.
No.
No.
I bet you like half those people on that ship are probably into nachos too, So it is all good. But and so I kind of want to touch base on one more thing before we kind of let y'all go. The Safe Zone Project, I am the coordinator for it. It's a slowly growing project here on campus that has to do with LGBTQ plus youth. I encourage everyone to kind of take part and go to these trainings and classes. It's a 2-part series. You can take one or the other. They're both very informational. One has to do more with how to be a good ally. One has to do with proper rhetoric and how to speak to someone in that community. I like to view it as a great resource before you go into a workforce. It kind of gives you an idea of how to conduct yourself around people from this community as far as pronoun usage goes, as far as understanding how gender and sexual orientation work, the differences between the two, and as far as all of that fun stuff. Like I said, it's a two-part series. I've got a bunch of trainings up online. So if you want to kind of further yourself, and kind of educate yourself on that community, I encourage you to take part in the class. It's a great thing to go on a resume. I've had plenty of people use that on a resume because a lot of, people are becoming a lot more open about their sexuality now and how they identify. And workers, like we kind of talked about earlier, people in the workplace and future employers, they kind of want their employees to be inclusive, because if they're not, if they're kind of downgrading their people, you're not going to get anything done in the workforce,
Right.
and your productivity is going to decrease by that 40–80%, and they're just going to look for another job. So I encourage y'all to kind of take part in that. I've got a few more classes this semester. I don't know how many of y'all are about to graduate, but they're every semester, usually about 8 or 9 semester. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
So what's the next one? So when's the next one?
Tomorrow night, but because of COVID, we are limiting each class, and because of confidential reasons, as far as keeping people's information quiet, how they identify, we keep the classes to a very small amount, usually about 15. Yes?
Have you ever thought talking to discrimination about doing this for the RTC program?
Do you know Justin Parker?
I do.
Okay. He's the one. Yeah, Sergeant Parker. Yeah. He's a wonderful. He's actually one of my facilitators. He's the one who started this program on campus.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me, bro. I don't know.
Yeah, so he started this back in 2016, 2017.
How about you, man?
Yeah.
He didn't tell me about this.
Oh, he's living his best life.
As soon as he retired, he said he's good. Yeah.
But he's the one who did it, and he just needed someone to take over because it started going into something that he couldn't manage between ROTC and others.
He's also teaching the marksmanship class.
Yep. So I'm just now taking care of his child. So if you want to take these classes, please. And he's probably promoting that maybe a little bit over there in ROTC. If not, I'll get you some flyers. But yeah.
Give me some flyers. I'll take care.
Okay.
I can buy y'all's office.
Yeah, he's gone now. He's
He has a nice arm.
Say what?
He has a
he's
nice
retired. He's not in our JSU anymore.
Yeah, he's over in Florida Panama.
They're not thinking of the one, Justin Parker.
No, they're not there. No, Justin Parker.
They just don't know it's like in RTC.
Even the veterans.
Oh,
That's Justin Parker. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, these are two different, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, no, yeah. That's why I was confused, because the only thing you really talked about was in Florida.
Yep.
That's not the one.
I was like, I just spoke with him the other day, so something's not adding up.
He's too young to retire.
Fast forward to come.
Well, thank you all for giving us your attention. If you need us for anything, come by. And we have a nice area now
So,
in Angel Hall.
one last thing, we have a little student lounge area, so if you know anyone who's like insecure, feels unsafe, they need a safe place to just study, to hang out, to relax.
Just come by.
Yeah, just come by. We've got a TV. We've hopefully got a gaming console next week. Like we've got this whole setup happening, and so anyone who needs a safe spot, send them to us. We're in Angel Hall.
Might have some
117.
snacks.
Oh yeah, we've got coffee constantly and water and everything. So so sometimes it's just
Y'all can have the cure, I got
tempted. Just tempted.
It's clean, I got you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we disperse, I want to say thank you for having us today.
Thank you.
I've definitely taken a lot from this, and I'm going to implement it now that I'm in this position. And this is all the knowledge to me, so.
All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Definitely learned.
Have any questions, always feel free to come on by.
Call us, stop by, hang out, play games, whatever.
I have a good question. Yeah, it was really comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm looking for
And it gives me a little height. I got to have a little something.
I feel that.
I'm looking for shoes for at work.
I'm over about his head.
Yeah.